Vacate the room, my father said, not whispering, not asking. The same evening, my brother showed up with 2 suitcases and a pregnant wife I'd met exactly once. Tiffany stood behind Marcus, scanning my bedroom. The room I'd painted myself. The shelves I'd mounted with my own drill. Every square foot paid for with my own money. And added, "It would be better if you left the house altogether." My father nodded. My mother looked at the floor. Nobody said another word. I left. I packed everything I owned into 3 cardboard boxes and walked out of a house that had my name. And only my name. On the deed. But what my family didn't know, what they'd discover just a few days later, made Tiffany call me at 11 o'clock at night, voice shaking. "It's not true. Tell me it's not true." Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe. But only if you genuinely connect with this story. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. My name is Sabrina Brennan. I'm 29 years old and I'm a licensed civil engineer in Massachusetts. Now let me take you back 4 years. To the day I signed the papers on a house I thought would keep my family together. I remember the pen. It was a cheap blue ballpoint, the kind you grab from a cup on a receptionist's desk, and I used it to sign the most expensive document of my life. March 14th, 4 years ago, in a title company office on State Street in Springfield. The notary stamped the deed of trust, slid it across the table, and said, "Congratulations, Ms. Brennan, it's all yours." All mine. My name, Sabrina Brennan, was the only name on that deed. No co-signer, no co-owner. Just me, a 25-year-old with a freshly minted PE license, a starting salary of $72,000, and an FHA loan for $234,000. Monthly payment, $2,340, due on the first of every month for the next 30 years. The house was more than I needed. 2 stories, a half-finished basement, 3 bedrooms, a backyard with a maple tree that dropped leaves all over the driveway every October. I didn't need 3 bedrooms. I needed 1. But I bought a house with 3 because my father, Gerald Brennan, 58, retired plumber with a bad back and a disability check of $1,480 a month, had just sold the mobile home he and my mother had lived in for 11 years. They had nowhere to go. So I made room. The deal was simple. They'd move in, contribute toward utilities, and we'd be a family under one roof. That was the deal. Verbal. No lease. No written agreement. Just trust. They moved in the following week. My mother brought her ceramic rooster collection. My father brought his recliner and his opinions. Neither of them ever paid a single utility bill. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that I spent 4 years believing that if I just kept paying, kept maintaining, kept proving, they'd eventually see what I was worth. They never did. Let me tell you about the hierarchy in the Brennan household because it'll explain everything that comes next. Marcus Brennan, my older brother, 33. Handsome in the way that gets you a second date but never a second promotion. He sold used cars at a dealership called Riverside Motors and talked about it like he was closing mergers on Wall Street. My father adored him. Gerald Brennan had one belief that governed his entire worldview. Sons carry the name, daughters carry the groceries. Marcus was the future. I was the infrastructure. When Marcus graduated from community college, which took him 3 attempts and a D- in statistics, my father threw a backyard barbecue. 16 people, burgers, beer, a banner that said "Proud of You," son in block letters. When I graduated with honors from the civil engineering program at UMass Amherst, cum laude, Dean's List 7 out of 8 semesters, my father sent a text message. 4 words, "Good for you, kid." No period, no exclamation point, no barbecue. When I passed the PE exam, a license that fewer than 25% of engineering graduates achieve, my mother said, "That's nice, honey. Your brother just got promoted to senior sales." Senior sales? At a used car lot? With $38,000 in credit card debt. But Gerald didn't know about the debt. Or maybe he did, and didn't care. What I know for certain is that he'd been quietly lending Marcus money from his disability check. $5,000 here, $3,000 there, and then turning around and asking me to help with the bills this month, sweetheart. The prescriptions are killing us. I always said yes, because that's what infrastructure does. It holds everything up, and nobody notices until it's gone. Then, one Friday evening, Marcus called with news that changed everything. Before I get to that phone call, I need you to understand the numbers, because numbers don't lie, and in my family, they were the only thing that didn't. Over 4 years, I paid 48 mortgage installments at $2,340 each. That's $112,320. Just principal and interest. On top of that, I covered the electric bill, which averaged $380 a month in Massachusetts, where winters are serious. Water and sewer ran about $90, internet and cable. My father insisted on the sports package, added another $200. Groceries I supplemented at roughly $150 a month because my parents ate every meal at home and never once pushed a cart through a supermarket. Add it all up. $147,360, conservatively, over 4 years, from my paycheck, into a house where I slept in one bedroom and asked nothing from anyone. I also painted the exterior twice. Did it myself? 2 weekends each time, up on a 20-foot extension ladder. I replaced the roof section over the back porch when it started leaking. $4,200 out of pocket. I installed a heating unit in the basement because my father complained the house was drafty downstairs. $3,100. My neighbor, Louise Vacate, 67 years old, lived next door for 11 years, saw all of it. Every ladder session, every bag of mulch. Every Saturday morning, I was out there with a snow shovel at 6 a.m. while my parents slept. Louise stopped me once, leaning over the fence. "Honey, where's your family when you're up on that ladder?" I smiled and said, "They're inside. That's kind of the point, so they can be comfortable inside." Louise gave me a look I didn't understand then. I understand it now. It was pity. Then Marcus called. "Sabrina, I'm coming home. And I'm not coming alone." Marcus's voice had that particular brightness it only got when he wanted something. I'd heard it before. When he needed a cosigner, I said no. When he wanted to borrow my car for a weekend that turned into 2 weeks. When he asked me to talk to Dad about sending him more money. This time, he was bringing Tiffany, his wife of 8 months, 7 months pregnant. They arrived on a Friday evening. 2 large suitcases. 3 boxes of baby supplies, and Tiffany, who stepped out of Marcus's car and looked at the house the way you'd appraise something at an auction. She was 30 years old, worked part-time as a receptionist at a dental office, and had a way of making every sentence sound like she was doing you a favor by speaking. My father was ready. I realized that within 30 seconds of their arrival, because the living room furniture had already been rearranged, a corner cleared, a space made. Gerald had known they were coming. He'd prepared. And he hadn't told me. But Tiffany took one look at the living room and shook her head. "This won't work. We need a real bedroom. I'm 7 months along." Gerald turned to me. Not asked. Turned. The way you'd turn to a piece of furniture that needed repositioning. "Vacate the room." "That's my room, Dad. I've been in that room for 4 years. And Marcus needs it now. He has a family." "I am family." "You know what I mean." Tiffany added her line, the one I already told you about. And then my mother appeared in the hallway holding 3 flattened cardboard boxes. The same brand, the same size. The ones I'd used to move in 4 years ago. She'd kept them. 4 years she'd kept those boxes in the garage, as if she'd always known this day was coming. I told myself it was temporary. 1 week, maybe 2, until we figured things out. That's what Gerald said. "Just temporary, Sabrina. Just until things settle." So I moved downstairs. To the basement. The one I'd spent $3,100 heating. Bare concrete walls. A single overhead bulb on a pull chain. A mattress I dragged down from the guest closet, set directly on the floor because there was no bed frame. The air smelled like Mildite and old cardboard, and in the corner, a slow drip from a joint in the cold water pipe marked time with a rhythm that kept me awake the first night. Upstairs, Tiffany made herself at home. The next afternoon, she posted a photo of my old bedroom, now arranged as a nursery with a crib and pastel bunting, to her Instagram. Family always makes room for the next generation, followed by a pink heart emoji. 212 likes, comments full of heart eyes and congratulations, and what a beautiful space. Nobody asked whose space it had been 24 hours earlier. Marcus passed me on the stairs the following morning. It's just temporary, Sabrina. Don't make this weird. I slept in that basement for 3 nights. On the 3rd night, a pipe joint gave way slightly. Not a burst, but a steady seep. And I woke at 3 a.m. with my back soaked through the mattress. I lay there in the dark, water creeping through the fabric, staring at the ceiling, which was their floor. And I thought, I am paying $2,340 a month to sleep in a puddle beneath my own house. The next morning, I went upstairs to make coffee. Tiffany was sitting at the kitchen table using the espresso machine I'd bought. She looked up. Oh, you're still here? That was the first time in my life I understood that love and ownership are not the same thing. It happened on a Tuesday. I was sitting in my car in the parking lot at work, eating a granola bar, when my phone buzzed with a notification from my credit monitoring service. I'd signed up for it 3 years earlier. Not out of paranoia, but because my engineering brain likes tracking data. The alert read, "New lien detected on property at 147 Maplewood Drive, Springfield, MA." I read it twice, then a 3rd time. Then I put the granola bar down and opened the full report. A $95,000 mortgage lien. Filed through Greenfield Credit Union, a small community bank on Carew Street. The same one where my father had his checking account. The borrower's signature on the deed of trust addendum, Sabrina Brennan. Except I had never signed anything. I had never been to Greenfield Credit Union. I had never authorized a lien on my property. I pulled up the signature image on the PDF. It looked close enough to fool a casual glance. But I knew my own handwriting the way a musician knows their own instrument. The capital B in Brennan was wrong. I loop it tight at the top. This one swooped wide, the way you'd copy it from a photocopy. And the middle initial, my middle initial, E, for Elizabeth, was written in print. I always write it in cursive. Someone had traced my signature. From the used car lease I'd signed 2 years earlier, the one my father had helpfully photocopied for his records. I called the credit union. A manager confirmed the loan had been processed 3 months prior by a representative described as a family member of the property owner. The witness on the application was listed as Donna Brennan, my mother. $95,000. My name. My house. Without my knowledge. Without my consent. I sat in that parking lot with both hands on the steering wheel, shaking. Not from fear. From rage. If this lien hit my credit report officially within the next 30 days, my score of 761, built over nearly a decade of discipline, would collapse. And with it, everything I'd worked for. The clock started ticking. There's a Dunkin' on Boston Road that stays open 24 hours. I sat there until 1 in the morning with a medium black coffee and a paper napkin I'd flattened on the table. I drew a line down the middle. Left side, what I lose if I fight. Right side, what I lose if I don't. The left side was short but heavy. My relationship with my parents, whatever was left of it, the possibility of being cut off by the extended family, Aunt Patrice's Christmas cards, Uncle Ray's handshake at Thanksgiving, and Tiffany was 7 months pregnant, which meant any move I made would be framed as an attack on an expectant mother. I could already hear the narrative Gerald would build. The right side was longer. $95,000 in fraudulent debt attached to my name. A credit score in freefall. The potential loss of my ability to refinance, to borrow, to function financially as an independent adult. And the certainty, the absolute mathematical certainty, that if I did nothing, they would do it again. Because people who steal from you once and face no consequences don't stop. They just get bolder. I looked at both columns. Then I crumpled the napkin and threw it away. The decision had already been made the moment I saw that forged signature. I just needed the napkin to confirm it. The next morning, I called Rita Calloway. She was a real estate attorney in Springfield, 17 years of practice, specializing in property disputes. A colleague's mother knew her. I told Rita everything. She listened without interrupting for 6 minutes straight. Then she said, "Sabrina, what your father did is forgery. What your mother did is aiding and abetting. What Marcus did is fraud. I need you to not say a single word to anyone in your family until we have everything documented." For the first time in 4 years, I wasn't paying bills to keep a family together. I was paying a lawyer to keep myself intact. Rita worked fast. Within 48 hours, she had filed a formal request under my rights as the property owner for every document related to the lien. Greenfield Credit Union was obligated to comply, and they did. Reluctantly, but they did. The packet arrived at Rita's office on a Thursday afternoon. I drove there straight from work, and we spread the pages across her conference table like evidence in a crime scene. Because that's what it was. The forged deed of trust addendum. My signature, or the version of it someone had traced from that car lease, at the bottom of page 4. My mother's name as witness on page 5, in her unmistakable handwriting, Donna Brennan, written with the same green ink pen she'd used for 20 years. Then the transaction records. Rita had highlighted them in yellow. $38,000 transferred directly to a credit card account registered to Marcus G. Brennan. His entire outstanding balance, wiped clean in one wire. $22,000 to Riverside Motors. A down payment on a vehicle. $15,000 withdrawn in cash by Donna Brennan over 3 separate visits. And $20,000 sitting untouched in Gerald Brennan's personal savings account, a slush fund, a retirement cushion built on my name. $95,000, parceled out like Christmas gifts, while I slept on a wet mattress in the basement. Rita looked at me over the top of her reading glasses. They thought they were clever. But clever people don't forge documents on a property they don't own with a credit union that keeps digital records of everything. She also told me something I hadn't considered. The loan officer who'd processed the application, a man named Derek Gaines, had bypassed the standard identity verification protocol. No in-person confirmation, no video call. Just Gerald's word and a photocopied signature. "We have more than enough," Rita said. "Now, when do you want to move?" Day 12. That's how long it took from the moment I discovered the forged lien to the moment I walked out of 147 Maplewood Drive with 3 cardboard boxes, a duffel bag, and a plan. I'd signed a lease 3 days earlier on a studio apartment 8 minutes away, 900 square feet, clean, quiet, $1,100 a month. I signed it with the same pen I used for mortgage payments, and for the first time, the money felt like it was going somewhere that belonged to me. The packing took less than 2 hours. 4 years in that house, and my entire life fit into 3 boxes and a bag. Clothes, laptop, my PE license in its frame, the small toolbox I'd used to fix everything from the kitchen faucet to the porch railing, a photo of my grandmother Helen that I kept on my nightstand. Before I left, I placed a white envelope on the kitchen table. Inside, a photocopy of the deed of trust, my name, highlighted, and a single handwritten note on plain paper. "This house is mine. The mortgage is mine. Everything else is about to change." I drove away at 6:15 in the evening. The maple tree in the front yard was beginning to turn, the first edges of orange creeping into the green. I didn't look back. Gerald found the envelope at 7. Donna told me later what happened. He opened it, read the deed copy, read the note, and tore the paper in half. Then he said, "She's bluffing." He didn't know that the deed copy was just a copy. The original was locked in a safe deposit box at my bank, along with every piece of documentation Rita had certified. He tore up a photocopy and thought he'd won. I let him think that. He had 18 days left. The first week after I left, the Brennan family settled into my house like they'd inherited it. Tiffany posted an Instagram story from the living room. Finally, a house that feels like home. 187 views. She'd rearranged the furniture, hung a wreath on the front door, and placed a welcome mat over the threshold I'd paid for. Marcus mowed the lawn for what I'm fairly confident was the first time in his life and posted a selfie with the caption, "Dad duty starts early." Gerald controlled the narrative the way he controlled everything, decisively and without evidence. He called Uncle Ray. He called Aunt Patrice. He called his own mother, Helen. His version of events, as I later pieced together from multiple sources, went like this. Sabrina moved out. She wanted her own space, very independent girl. No mention of the basement, no mention of the eviction from my bedroom, no mention of the forged mortgage, just a proud father whose capable daughter had decided to spread her wings. My mother called me once that week, not to ask how I was, not to say she missed me. She called to ask, "Did you pay the electric bill before you left?" Gerald said the lights flickered. I let that sentence sit in silence for 3 full seconds before I answered. Meanwhile, Rita and I were working through our checklist. The fraud complaint to Greenfield Credit Union. Filed. Formal disputes with all 3 credit bureaus. Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. Submitted with supporting documentation. And the final piece. The 30-day notice to quit. Prepared and ready. Addressed to Gerald Brennan, Donna Brennan, Marcus Brennan, and Tiffany Brennan. Under Massachusetts law, occupants without a lease are entitled to 30 days written notice before eviction proceedings can begin. Rita scheduled the process server for day 17. The same day as Gerald's open house. 45 guests. Perfect timing. It started with the heating system. Day 5 after I left, the thermostat in the main unit glitched. A quirk I'd learned to fix myself by resetting the breaker and recalibrating the temperature sensor. It took 90 seconds if you knew what you were doing. Gerald did not know what he was doing. He called an HVAC company. They quoted him $2,800 for a diagnostic and potential part replacement. Gerald did not have $2,800. Day 7, the electric bill arrived. $340 for the month. Standard for a Massachusetts winter with 4 adults running heat around the clock. The bill was still in my name because the transfer request I'd submitted hadn't processed yet. Gerald called me. "When are you coming back? The house needs you." Not, "We miss you," not, "Are you okay?" "The house needs you." As if I were a part of the plumbing. "I'm not coming back, Dad. You should contact the utility company directly. The account is under my name, and I've already submitted a transfer request." "What do you mean, transfer request?" "I mean the bills will be in your name starting next month, or whoever's name you'd like." 10 seconds of silence. Then he hung up without another word. That evening, Tiffany sent me a text. I still have it, word for word. "This is really selfish timing. I'm due in 8 weeks." Selfish. That word. It's remarkable how precisely selfish maps onto inconvenient for me. I'd paid $147,000 into that household over 4 years. I'd heated the basement at my own expense so the house would be comfortable. I'd replaced the roof so the rain wouldn't touch them. And the first time I stopped, the very first time I wasn't useful, I was selfish. I didn't respond to the text. Some sentences don't deserve an audience. My mother called at 9 on a Wednesday night. She was crying. The practiced, measured kind of crying that rises and falls at convenient intervals. The kind that sounds like grief but operates like a crowbar. "Your father is stressed. His back is worse. You know he can't handle the house alone." "Mom, I maintained that house alone for 4 years. Dad was there the whole time." "That's different. You're young. You're strong." I'm also the person whose signature was forged on a $95,000 mortgage. Did you want to talk about that? The crying stopped. Not tapered off. Stopped. Like someone had pressed pause on a recording. A long silence. Then, very quietly. "Your father said it was for the family. It was for Marcus's credit card debt. I have the bank records, Mom. $38,000 to his card. $22,000 for a car." You personally withdrew $15,000 in cash over 3 visits. Do you want me to read you the dates? You're going to tear this family apart? The family was torn apart the night you put 3 cardboard boxes outside my bedroom door. She hung up. I sat alone in my studio that night with the comparison sheet Rita had printed. My real signature on the left, the forgery on the right. And I asked myself whether I was being too hard. Whether there was a version of this where everyone came out whole. Whether the right thing and the kind thing were the same thing. Then I looked at the forgery again. My mother's handwriting on the witness line. Green ink. The same pen she used to write grocery lists and birthday cards, and the note she'd tucked into my lunchbox in 4th grade. Have a great day, sweetie. No, I wasn't too hard. I was finally clear. Have you ever had someone you love use your own loyalty as a weapon against you? I'd like to hear your story. Share it in the comments. You might help someone else realize they're not alone. Marcus showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Thursday evening. No call. No text. Just 3 hard knocks on a door he had no business knowing the address of, though I suspect my mother gave it to him. I checked the video feed from the Ring doorbell camera Rita had advised me to install the week prior. Marcus was standing on the walkway, jaw tight, fists opening and closing at his sides. I opened the door. What the hell are you doing, Sabrina? Dad says you're threatening to kick us out? I'm not threatening anything. I'm exercising my legal rights as the property owner. Property owner? He laughed, a short, ugly sound. You think a piece of paper makes you better than family? That piece of paper is a deed of trust. And another piece of paper, the one you forged with Dad, is a federal crime. The laugh died. His expression shifted, not to remorse but to calculation. I'd watched Marcus sell cars for years. I knew exactly when the pitch changed. Look. His voice softened. We can work this out. Tiffany's due in 8 weeks. You can't do this to her. I'm not doing anything to Tiffany. I'm undoing what was done to me. If you go through with this, you'll never see your niece or nephew. The words landed, but they didn't stick the way he'd intended. He was using a child, an unborn child, as a bargaining chip. The same way Gerald used family as a justification for theft. That's your choice, Marcus, not mine. He left. Slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. The Ring camera captured everything. His face, his voice, his threat, the timestamp, 7:42 p.m. Rita would have the footage by morning. Some people build walls with bricks. I was building mine with evidence. Gerald Brennan might not have been good with money, but he was masterful with a telephone. Within 48 hours of Marcus's visit, my father had called every branch of the family tree. Uncle Ray in Chicopee, Aunt Patrice in Holyoke. My grandmother Helen, 82 years old, in her assisted living apartment in Northampton. Cousins I hadn't spoken to since Thanksgiving 3 years ago. He called them all, and he told them all the same story. Sabrina abandoned her family. Sabrina is threatening to put her pregnant sister-in-law on the street. Sabrina has changed. The messages started arriving like a coordinated strike. Uncle Ray. Think about what you're doing, kiddo. A cousin I barely knew. Family first, Sabrina. Always. Aunt Patrice called directly, voice cold. Your grandmother is crying. I hope you're happy. I tried explaining to Patrice about the forged mortgage, the $95,000, the bank records, the signature that wasn't mine. I don't believe that, she said. Gerald would never. That sentence, Gerald would never, was the foundation of my father's entire strategy. He'd spent 58 years building a reputation as the dependable patriarch, the man who showed up at barbecues with a case of beer and a firm handshake, the man who called his mother every Sunday. He'd invested decades in that image, and now he was cashing it in to bury me. And it was working. In the court of family opinion, I was guilty without trial. I called Rita, told her everything. She listened, then said something that landed like an anchor. Don't fight the narrative, let the documents speak, and they will, at the right time. When? She glanced at the calendar on her desk. The open house. When all of them are there, 45 people, perfect audience. I swallowed. That's in 5 days. Then we have 5 days to get ready. On day 14, the letter arrived at Rita's office on Greenfield Credit Union letterhead. She called me at work. You're going to want to come in. I drove to her office during my lunch break. She'd already set the letter on her desk, turned so I could read it. The key paragraph was the third one, and I'll remember the language for the rest of my life. Following an internal compliance review, the signature on the deed of trust addendum dated, redacted, does not match the authenticated signature on file for the property owner, Sabrina E. Brennan. The associated loan has been suspended pending further investigation. Suspended. Not resolved. Not yet. But suspended. The lien would not be reported to the credit bureaus. My 761 score was safe. For now. Rita continued. The loan officer who'd processed the application, Derek Gaines, had been placed on administrative leave effective immediately. The bank's compliance team had flagged multiple procedural violations. Most critically, the absence of in-person identity verification. Gaines had later admitted in an internal interview that Gerald Brennan was a regular customer who'd bought him beers a couple of times and had told him the property owner was out of town, but fully aware of the transaction. Beers. My father had traded beers for my financial identity. The lien will be removed from your property record within 30 days, Rita said. But more importantly, the bank now has an institutional interest in cooperating with us. They processed a fraudulent loan on an employee's negligence. They don't want a lawsuit. For the first time in 2 weeks, I felt something loosen behind my sternum. A pressure I hadn't realized was there because it had been there for so long. But there was still the house. Still 4 people living in my property who believed they'd won. The process server, I said. Day 17. We're still on? Rita nodded. We're still on. The process server's name was Carl. I never got his last name. He was in his 40s, built like someone who'd played football in college and never entirely stopped, and he had the blank, professional calm of a man who hands people bad news for a living. Day 15. 2 p.m. A clear Wednesday afternoon. Carl walked up the front path of 147 Maplewood Drive, past Tiffany's new welcome mat, and knocked 3 times. Gerald opened the door. Carl handed him the notice to quit, a formal 30-day eviction notice issued by the property owner, me, pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 186, Section 12. The document named all 4 occupants, Gerald Brennan, Donna Brennan, Marcus Brennan, and Tiffany Brennan. It stated, in plain legal English, that they had 30 days to vacate the property or face formal eviction proceedings through Springfield Housing Court. According to the process server's affidavit, which I received that evening, Gerald read the first page, looked up, read it again, and said nothing. The notation. Recipient appeared visibly shaken. Document served successfully at 2:07 p.m. Gerald called me 11 minutes later. For the first time in my life, his voice was not commanding. It was cracked. You're evicting us? Your own parents? You forged my name on a $95,000 loan, Dad. The bank confirmed it. You have 30 days. I did it for the family. You did it for Marcus's credit card debt. I have the transaction records, every dollar, every deposit, every cash withdrawal Mom made. You ungrateful. He didn't finish the sentence. He hung up. Marcus called 4 minutes after that, already shouting, You're insane. Tiffany is due in 6 weeks. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem to solve anymore, Marcus. 2 days remained until Gerald's open house. 45 invitations sent, catering ordered, rental chairs arranged in the backyard. He didn't cancel. He told Donna, We'll show them we're still a family. Sabrina is the one who left. He still believed he controlled the narrative. Sunday, 1 p.m. The maple tree in the front yard of 147 Maplewood Drive had gone full orange, and beneath it, Gerald Brennan had arranged folding tables, a catered spread from a local deli, helium balloons in pink and white, and 45 chairs in neat rows like a congregation awaiting a sermon. The event was billed as Welcome Baby Brennan, a celebration of Marcus and Tiffany's incoming child, the first grandchild of the Brennan line. Gerald had sent text reminders the day before. Donna had baked a lemon cake. Tiffany wore a new lavender maternity dress and sat in a cushioned chair at the head of the main table like a guest of honor at a banquet. The crowd filled in over the first hour. Uncle Ray, khaki shorts and a polo, standing near the grill. Aunt Patrice, holding a wrapped gift, lips tight. Grandmother Helen, 82, seated in a padded lawn chair someone had brought specifically for her. Neighbors from Maplewood Drive, including Louise Beckett, who stood at the edge of the yard with a glass of lemonade and a face that said she was there to watch, not to celebrate. Co-workers from Riverside Motors, friends of Tiffany from the dental office, cousins, second cousins, a few people I couldn't place. Gerald stood at the center of it all. Dress shirt tucked in, sleeves rolled once at the cuff. He raised a plastic cup of lemonade and offered a toast. The Brennan family is growing. This house, this home, has always been about family. 45 people clapped. Tiffany beamed. Marcus put his arm around her. Donna smiled from behind the cake table, arranging plates. Nobody mentioned me. Gerald had told anyone who asked that I couldn't make it, that I'd been going through some things. Louise Beckett took a slow sip of her lemonade and said nothing. It was 1:15. I was 8 minutes away, sitting in my car with a manila folder on the passenger seat and a heartbeat I could feel in my throat. I parked on the street, 2 houses down, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Gray blazer, black slacks, white blouse. The same outfit I wore to project review meetings at work. Hair pulled back in a low knot. Minimal makeup. I looked like someone who'd come to deliver a report, because that's exactly what I was doing. The manila folder sat on my lap. Inside, a certified copy of the deed of trust. The signature comparison, mine on the left, the forgery on the right. The official letter from Greenfield Credit Union confirming the loan suspension, and photocopies of the transaction records showing where every dollar of that $95,000 had gone. Rita had organized the pages in order. Each one was tabbed. I walked up the sidewalk at 2:15. The party had been going for over an hour. People were eating, laughing, milling around the yard. A few kids chased each other near the fence. The balloons bobbed in a light breeze. Gerald saw me first. He was standing near the porch steps, mid-conversation with a cousin, and his expression went through 3 stages in about 2 seconds. Surprise, irritation, and something closer to fear than I'd ever seen on his face. He walked toward me fast. "What are you doing here?" "I'm at my house, Dad. The one with my name on the deed." "Don't make a scene. I'm not the one who forged someone's signature on a mortgage application." His hand closed around my arm, just above the elbow. Not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to steer. "Lower your voice." A voice came from behind us, clear and firm. "Gerald, take your hand off that girl." Louise Beckett. Standing 6 feet away, lemonade still in hand, expression as steady as poured concrete. Gerald let go. A few heads turned, then a few more. Tiffany appeared in the doorway, baby shower gift bag still in her hand. She saw me and her face drained of color. "Why is she here?" 45 people were watching now. I stood on the porch, 3 steps up from the yard in full view of every guest, and I did not raise my voice. I didn't need to. Silence carries farther than shouting when the audience is already listening. "Most of you were told I moved out because I wanted my own space. That's not what happened." I opened the manila folder. "This house is in my name. Only my name. I bought it 4 years ago with an FHA loan. I've paid every mortgage payment, $2,340 a month. 48 months, $112,320 total. My parents contributed $0. Gerald took a step forward. "Sabrina, stop this. 3 weeks ago, I discovered that my father, with my mother as a witness, forged my signature on a $95,000 mortgage application at Greenfield Credit Union." I held up the signature comparison. "This is my real signature." I pointed to the left column. "And this is the one on the mortgage." I pointed to the right. "They're not the same." The bank confirmed it in writing. I held up the letter from Greenfield. The loan has been suspended. The bank is investigating. I held up the transaction summary. $38,000 went to Marcus's credit card debt, $22,000 to a car dealership for his down payment. $15,000 was withdrawn in cash by my mother. $20,000 is sitting in my father's savings account right now. My parents stole $95,000 from me by forging my name. The yard went silent. Not the polite silence of a pause between toasts, the airless silence of 45 people realizing they're standing inside someone else's lie. Aunt Patrice set her cup down on the table. Uncle Ray looked at Gerald with an expression I'd never seen him wear. Then Louise Beckett spoke, loud enough for every corner of that yard. I've lived next door for 11 years. I watched this girl mow that lawn, paint those walls, shovel that driveway. Alone. Every single time. And they had the nerve to put her in the basement. I set the folder on the porch railing. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because 45 people deserve to know the truth before they congratulate this family on growing. Tiffany rose from the cushioned chair slowly, one hand on the armrest, the other on her belly. Her face was the color of the paper plates stacked on the catering table. She looked at Marcus the way you'd look at a stranger wearing your husband's clothes. Tell me this isn't real. Marcus didn't move. His eyes were fixed on a spot on the ground somewhere between his shoes and the edge of the lawn. His mouth opened, then closed. Marcus. Tiffany's voice went up an octave. Tell me the $38,000 wasn't true. Tell me you didn't use stolen money to pay off your debt. It's complicated, Tiff. It's not true. Tell me it's not true. Her voice broke across the yard like glass on tile. A child near the fence stopped running. Uncle Ray set his plate down. Grandmother Helen, seated in her padded lawn chair, gripped both armrests and stared at her son with the kind of stillness that precedes a verdict. Gerald tried. He stepped forward, arms out, the patriarch reassembling his stage. Everyone, this is a family matter. Uncle Ray cut him off. A family matter? You forged your daughter's name, Gerald. That's not a family matter. That's a crime. Aunt Patrice, the same woman who'd told me my grandmother was crying because of me, picked up the wrapped baby gift she'd brought, set it back in her bag, and stepped away from the table without a word. Then Helen spoke. Her voice was thin from age but harder than anything I'd heard that afternoon. Gerald, I didn't raise you to be a thief. Mom, sit down and be quiet. Gerald sat, on a folding chair, in the middle of his own party, in front of 45 people. He sat down and said nothing. Tiffany walked inside. The screen door slammed behind her. One by one, guests began collecting their things. Nobody took leftover cake. Nobody said congratulations. The open house was over. The house was mine. An hour later, the yard looked like the aftermath of something canceled mid-sentence. Folding tables still up, paper plates caught in the grass, pink and white balloons tethered to the mailbox, bobbing in a wind that no longer had a party beneath it. I sat in my car at the curb, engine off, hands on my knees. I'd expected to feel something sharp, triumph, relief, the clean snap of justice delivered. Instead, I felt hollow, like I'd just pulled a tooth that had been rotting for years. Necessary, correct, and nothing about it felt good. Through the front window, I could see Gerald sitting in the living room, just sitting. Donna was in the kitchen. I could see her shadow moving behind the curtain, wiping the counter, the way she always did when she didn't know what else to do. Upstairs, behind the closed door of the nursery that used to be my bedroom, Tiffany had locked Marcus out. I could hear it even from the curb. Her voice, muffled, but unmistakable. You told me you got a bonus? A bonus, Marcus. You lied to my face for 3 months. I was going to tell you. When? After the baby was born? After we moved into a house that isn't even ours? A car pulled up behind mine. Uncle Ray. He got out, walked to my window, and stood there for a moment before he spoke. I owe you an apology. I believed your father. I shouldn't have. Thank you, Uncle Ray. That means a lot. He nodded once, got back in his car, and drove away. Aunt Patrice left without stopping. But 48 hours later, she'd send a text, 2 paragraphs long, an apology she clearly rewrote several times. I started my car and pulled away from Maplewood Drive. In the rearview mirror, the balloon still floated above the mailbox, pink and white against a gray sky, celebrating something that no longer existed. Tiffany called that night at 9:30. Her voice was different from what I expected. Not angry, not crying, just flat. The voice of someone who has run out of feelings and is now running on information. I need to know everything, every dollar, every lie. I hesitated. This was the same woman who'd told me to leave my own house, who'd posted my bedroom on Instagram as a trophy, who'd called me selfish for not paying the electric bill on a property she was occupying for free. But she was also 7 months pregnant and had just discovered that her husband had funded their life with stolen money. Whatever she was before, right now she was someone who deserved the truth. I sent her the transaction records. All of them. 15 minutes of silence. Then her name appeared on my phone again. The $22,000 for the car. He told me that was a dealer discount. He said he earned it. I'm sorry, Tiffany, I really am. Don't be sorry. I'm the one who told you to leave your own house. A pause long enough to drive through. I didn't know it was your house. Gerald told me it was a family property, passed down from your grandparents. That's what he said. It was never a family property. I bought it with my own money when I was 25. Another silence, then quieter. I owe you an apology. A real one. Not now. I can't right now. But I owe you one. Before she hung up, she told me something I hadn't known. Marcus also owed her $7,000. Money she'd lent him before the wedding. Money he'd sworn he'd pay back after the baby came. She was beginning to see the pattern I'd spent 4 years learning. Her last words. I'm calling my mom tomorrow. I'm not raising this baby in a house built on lies. She kept her word. The week after the open house, the Brennan family came apart like a building with the load-bearing wall removed. And I would know. I'm an engineer. I know exactly what happens when you take away the thing that held everything up. Tiffany moved to her mother's house in Worcester, an hour and a half east. Marcus called her 14 times the first day. She answered none of them. By the third day, her Facebook status changed from married to blank. Not single, not, it's complicated, just blank, which somehow felt louder than either. Marcus lost his footing. Without Tiffany, without the baby on the way narrative, he was just a 33-year-old man sleeping on the sofa in his sister's house. Except it wasn't his sister's house. It was just his sister's. Gerald, for the first time in Marcus's memory, turned on him. If you hadn't been in so much debt, none of this would have happened. Golden child, meet the cold side of the altar. Gerald himself was unraveling in slower, quieter ways. He canceled his weekly poker game for the first time in 12 years, told his buddies family stuff, but 2 of the men in that group had been at the open house. They already knew. The phone calls Gerald used to receive, from cousins checking in, from friends wanting to grab lunch. Slowed to a trickle. Uncle Ray didn't call at all. Helen, his own mother, didn't return his calls for 3 days straight. Donna called me once a day, every day. Same script, same cadence. Please come home. We can fix this. And every day I gave the same answer. There's nothing to fix, Mom. There's only what happens next. On Friday, a letter arrived at 147 Maplewood Drive from Greenfield Credit Union. A formal request for Gerald and Donna to appear in person at the branch to discuss the matter. The bank had its own problems now, and Gerald was running out of people willing to believe his version of the story. The internet is not kind to secrets. It's even less kind when the secret involves baby showers and stolen mortgages. Tiffany deleted the Instagram post. Family always makes room for the next generation, the one with 212 likes and a pink heart emoji. She deleted it, but screenshots live forever, and within a day, a friend of hers from the dental office posted a cryptic status on Facebook. Imagine finding out the house you thought was a gift was actually stolen property. Some families. Red flag emoji. 89 comments. 340 reactions. Tiffany wasn't named. She didn't need to be. The people who knew, knew. On Maplewood Drive, the Whisper network operated at the speed of a cul-de-sac. Louise Beckett didn't gossip. It wasn't in her nature. But when neighbors asked, she gave them one sentence. I watched that girl build this home with her own 2 hands. You should ask Gerald what he built. It was the kind of line that didn't need a follow-up. People filled in the rest themselves. At Riverside Motors, Marcus's co-workers had been at the open house. 2 of them. They'd seen the documents, heard Tiffany scream, watched Gerald get told to sit down by his own mother. One of them asked Marcus on Monday morning, "Hey, wasn't that your sister's house?" Marcus didn't answer. He requested 3 days of personal leave. His manager approved it without questions. Some silences are louder than explanations. Aunt Patrice sent me a text on the second Tuesday. It was longer than I expected and more honest than I deserved from someone who'd told me my grandmother was crying because of me. "Sabrina, I am sorry. I should have listened to you before I judged you. I always wondered how Marcus afforded that new car. Now I know. I hope you can forgive me in time." I didn't reply right away, but I saved the message. Some apologies need to sit before you know what they weigh. Day 30. The eviction notice expired on a Tuesday morning. No extensions, no negotiations, no last-minute phone calls that changed anything. Rita sent a final formal letter to the house. If all occupants had not vacated by end of day, we would file for a court-ordered eviction through Springfield Housing Court. The letter was addressed to Gerald. It arrived by certified mail. He signed for it. That signature, at least, was his own. Gerald called me that afternoon. His voice was different. Not angry, not commanding, not even the cracked version from weeks ago. It was flat, depleted. The voice of a man who has run out of people to blame and hasn't yet learned how to look in a mirror. "Where are we supposed to go, Sabrina?" "I've already looked into this for you. There are 2 apartments available on Elm Street. $1,200 and $1,400 a month. Your disability check covers rent. Mom can apply for part-time work. That's your starting point." Silence. "I'm not throwing you out with nothing, Dad. I'm telling you that you can't live in a house you stole from me. There's a difference." "I didn't steal." "Yes, you did." More silence. Then, "Okay." That was it. One word. The smallest, heaviest word he'd ever spoken to me. Donna started packing the next morning. Gerald sat in his recliner and watched. Marcus, who'd already moved in with a friend 2 weeks earlier, came by to collect the last of his things. He carried 2 boxes to his car without making eye contact with anyone. Day 33. Gerald and Donna moved into the $1,200 apartment on Elm Street. 1 bedroom, street level, a fraction of the space they'd occupied for free in my house. Gerald didn't say a word as he turned the key in the lock for the last time. Donna lingered at the front door, looked back at the house, then looked at me standing by my car. She nodded, small, slow, and walked to the passenger side of Gerald's truck. I handed my father 2 apartment listings because I couldn't hand him nothing. Even after everything, I couldn't be what he was to me. The legal aftermath was quieter than the personal one, but no less final. Greenfield Credit Union completed its internal investigation 6 weeks after the open house. The result? The $95,000 loan was voided in its entirety. The lien on 147 Maplewood Drive was removed from all property records. The fraudulent entry on my credit file was expunged through formal disputes with Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. My score, which had never actually dropped, thanks to Rita's preemptive action, climbed from 761 to 774 once the lien removal was reflected. Derek Gaines, the loan officer who'd processed the application on Gerald's word and a few beers, was terminated. The bank sent me a formal apology letter and offered a $5,000 goodwill compensation. I declined the money. Instead, I asked for a written commitment that Greenfield would implement mandatory in-person identity verification for all future mortgage applications. They agreed. Rita had the commitment notarized. The harder question came next: criminal charges. Rita laid it out plainly. What Gerald and Donna had done, forging a signature on a financial instrument, constituted forgery under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 267, Section 1. What Marcus had done, knowingly receiving proceeds, was fraud. I had standing to file a criminal complaint. I chose not to. Not because they didn't deserve it. Because I didn't want to spend 2 years in courtrooms revisiting the worst thing my family had ever done to me. I'd already won. I had my house, my credit, my name back. I didn't need a conviction to know I was right. But Rita sent Gerald one final letter. Ms. Brennan has chosen not to pursue criminal charges at this time. This decision is a courtesy, not an entitlement. Any future unauthorized use of Ms. Brennan's identity or property will be referred directly to law enforcement. Donna told me later. Gerald read that letter twice, folded it, and put it in a drawer. He never mentioned it again. Some warnings don't need to be loud. They just need to be permanent. 2 months after the open house, I sat at my kitchen table in the studio apartment, the one I'd rented as a temporary escape, and wrote an email. Not to Rita. Not to the bank. To my family. All 3 of them. Gerald, Donna, Marcus. It took me 4 hours to get it right. Not because the language was complicated, but because I wanted every word to be a wall with a door in it. Firm enough to protect me, open enough to prove I wasn't them. The email had 3 sections. The first was financial. I will not provide financial support for rent, utilities, or personal expenses. If you need assistance, I can refer you to community resources in Springfield. The second was about contact. I am open to communication, but only under specific conditions. No guilt language, no demands, and no discussion of the house or the mortgage. If these boundaries are crossed, I will pause contact for 90 days. The third was about the future. If and when trust is rebuilt, through consistent, demonstrated change over time, not through words. I'm open to having a relationship, but it will be on different terms than before. I read it 6 times. Then I pressed send. Gerald never responded. Not a word. Not then. Not since. Donna replied 2 days later. I understand. I'm sorry, Sabrina. I truly am. Marcus responded 2 weeks after that. 4 words. I get it. Which was either growth or fatigue. I couldn't tell, and I decided it didn't matter. I'd spent 4 years asking myself if I was being too hard, too cold, too much. But writing that email, laying it out in plain language, setting terms I could point to, was the first time I felt like I was being exactly enough. Have you ever had to draw a line with someone you love? Not with anger, but with a document? How did it feel? Tell me in the comments. You might find you're not the only one holding that pen. 3 months after the open house, Tiffany gave birth to a girl. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Lily Mae Brennan, born at a hospital in Worcester, near Tiffany's mother's house, in a delivery room that Marcus was not invited into. Tiffany sent me a photo the next morning. A tiny face wrapped in a white blanket, eyes closed, one miniature fist curled against her cheek. Beneath the photo, a message longer than any Tiffany had ever sent me. Sabrina, I said terrible things to you in a house that was never mine to claim. I was wrong. I was told things that weren't true, and I chose to believe them because it was easier. That's on me. You don't owe me anything. But if you ever want to meet Lily, she has your eyes? Actually, the door is open. No pressure. No timeline. I looked at that photo for a long time. Then I cried. For the first time since I'd left Maplewood Drive, I cried. Not from sadness, not from anger, but from the particular relief of something unclenching inside your chest that you forgot was clenched. I replied, "Thank you, Tiffany. That means more than you know. I'd like to meet Lily when the time is right." Tiffany had filed for separation at Worcester County Probate Court. She wasn't going back to Marcus. She told me later, in a conversation I didn't expect to have, that the $7,000 he still owed her was the smallest of his debts. Marcus called me once after Lily was born. He asked if he could bring the baby to see me sometime. I said yes, but at a coffee shop in town, not at my house. Public space. Neutral ground. A boundary I didn't need to explain and he didn't try to push. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a faucet. And I get to control the flow. 6 months after the open house, I moved back into 147 Maplewood Drive. My house. My name on the deed. My hand on the doorknob. My key in the lock. I repainted every room. New colors. Not to erase anything, but because I'd earned the right to choose. Soft gray in the bedroom, warm white in the kitchen. The basement got a proper floor, vapor barrier, and recessed lighting. I never wanted to look at bare concrete again. Louise Vacate came over the first afternoon with a potted lavender plant, set it on the porch railing, squeezed my hand, and said, "Welcome home, honey. For real this time." At work, the promotion I'd been tracking came through. Senior project engineer. Salary, $104,000 a year. I signed the offer letter at the same desk where I'd first seen the credit monitoring alert that started all of this. I began writing. Not reports, words. A blog first. Personal essays about family systems, about the cost of being the reliable one, about what happens when you stop subsidizing people who've confused your labor for your love. The first post, the basement test, how I knew it was time to leave, was shared 4,200 times in its first month. A small publisher in Boston, Harborline Press, reached out. They wanted a book. I signed the contract for The Deed is in My Name, Reclaiming Your Life from Family That Takes Too Much. Publication timeline, 8 months. Gerald and Donna live on Elm Street. He calls once a month. The calls are short, awkward, and devoid of demands. That, in itself, is progress. Marcus works at a dealership in Chicopee and sees Lily every 2 weeks. He's quieter now. Whether that's growth or exhaustion, I'm not sure. I've stopped needing to know. I met Lily at a coffee shop on a Tuesday afternoon. She was 3 months old, asleep in her carrier. Marcus handed her to me, and I held her, warm, impossibly small, and thought, I didn't lose a family. I lost a version of family that was never real, and I built something better in its place. The house is quiet now, but it's a different kind of quiet. Not the silence of being ignored, but the peace of being in control. That's my story. I shared it not because I'm angry. I'm not. Not anymore. But because I know someone out there is lying in their own basement right now, paying for a house they're not allowed to live in, wondering if they're the problem. You're not the problem. You were never the problem. And the moment you decide to stop funding the lie, that's the moment your life actually starts. If this story reached you, hit like. Subscribe if you want to hear more. And if you know someone who needs to hear this tonight, share it. Sometimes the thing that saves us is knowing someone else walked out first. There's another part of this story I haven't told yet, about the conversation between Gerald and his mother Helen, the one that happened a week after the open house, the one Donna said changed something in him permanently. That story is in the video linked in the description. I'll see you there.